Gentlemen and ladies, please give a massive Inspiring Talks Brighton welcome to Nige Atkinson.
Hi. Hello. Woo! Do you know, when I wrote the book, I didn't know who it was going to touch or who it was going to reach or who it was going to move. And it always really touches me when I hear a story that it's helped somebody in some way. Yeah, I'm really, thank you. I feel really blessed to hear that and really touched. So yeah, hi. My wife said on the way down here, she said, you've got 18 minutes to save the bloody world. So here we go. She would have been talking with me tonight, but she's not very well, but give her a round of applause because she's awesome. She's awesome. And yeah, so the goalpost got moved today because she's not well. We always do talks together, really. And it turned out, she said, I don't think I can do this. And I thought, oh no, she's poorly, but I couldn't help saying, you've dropped me in the shit here. What's going on? Anyway, so here I am. And I'm going to give you a little talk on breaking and healing the vowel male silence. Don't think I know what I'm doing because I don't. Anyway, here we are. So I want to, I'm probably going to go all over the place here with this. My voice goes high sometimes when I'm nervous, I'm just warning you, yeah, and I do swear a lot, so fuck. Okay, here we go. Just get that one out of my system, yeah? Okay, so anyway. Does anyone remember the Hulk? Yeah, you remember the Hulk? Awesome. I used to watch that programme when I was in the late 70s, early 80s. And for anyone who doesn't, you said you all do, but in a nutshell, it's basically a scientist who is exposed to a gamma blast during an experiment. And it kind of changes something in him. And every time he gets pissed off, he sort of mutates into this green monster. And little did I know, I mean, at the time, I really resonated with it. I loved that programme. It always moved me as well. And I didn't quite know why. And it was only much later that I came to know the Hulk in myself. And I want to just talk a little bit about my first relationship, which, you know, in the beginning, I was like most guys. I was kind of the guy who had it all together, you know. And the truth was, I didn't really have it all together. I was pretty fucked up, really. And so it wasn't long before the relationship started to fall apart. And what followed were 13 erratic years of psychological and physical abuse, two-way abuse. And there were some really crazy moments. During one moment of madness, we went on holiday once to Wales, and we hired a car. And I think we were going to see a film or something, and something happened on the way there. We were running behind, and I got quite... we had a little argument, and it was over nothing. They usually are, aren't they? We had an argument, and in the next breath, I punched my fist through the car windscreen and put my foot down to the floor, and I was driving down the wrong side of the road at 100 miles an hour on a dark coastal road before skidding to a halt. And in the next breath, I found myself running up a desolate beach, absolutely overwhelmed and confused by what I'd become, absolutely crawling with shame, wanting to rip this fucking part of me just out of me and bury it somewhere where no one would find it. And I didn't quite understand what that was about, because for the next few years, this was in the early part of the relationship, I hate to say. There were some other crazy moments, I'm not going to go into that tonight. And I didn't really know what any of that meant for me until I started working on myself. And I didn't really understand how to join the dots until I wrote the book. And so this title came to me, Odd Man Out, Breaking the Vowel Male Silence. And I went home to Elle, and I said, I'm going to write a book. I said, it's going to be about men. It's going to be my story. And she said, well, what's this Breaking the Vowel Male Silence about? And I said, oh, bloody, ask me, I don't know. I said, but I'm sure I'll find out along the way. And I did. And I think it was reading James Hollis's book, Under Saturn's Shadow, where I started to fully understand what the vowel male silence was. And he describes it as a conspiracy of silence, whose aim is to keep men emotionally silent. And the penny kind of dropped. And I thought, wow, what does that mean? And I started to think about some of the things I've been told growing up. How, don't talk about it, don't feel, be a man, man up. And when I say don't talk about it, don't talk about it. That is anything to do with vulnerability or femininity or sensitivity or anything like that. So I started to get an idea, and then I was sitting there going, it absolutely baffles me. It's like, why is it not okay for a man to cry? Why is it not okay for a man to feel? Why is it not okay for a man to have his emotions? What's the big bloody deal? And I'm sat there and I'm going, what's that about? It feels like a tight sweater, like something that has no use anymore, or it's past its sell-by date. It doesn't work. It doesn't work, and we know it doesn't work. And so what we're left with, as Brené Brown describes, are basically two emotions that men are allowed to have, and possibly a third one: pissed off and shut down. So that really started to help me understand, and I would say sport maybe as well. But, pissed off and shut down tend to be the only emotions once all the others have been eradicated. That's all you're left with. And I was sat there, I'm thinking, well, no wonder I'm acting like a bloody lunatic. What the hell's going on here? So for many men, because we only have pissed off and shut down, what happens is we start to act out. And we have a whole plethora of escape routes that we go to. Everything from porn to gambling to drugs, to sport, to washing the car, to hanging out down the shed, to smoking weed. You name it, we've got it. And all these things are designed to keep our emotions at arm's length so that we don't have to experience that. Now, my initiation into the vow of silence started at a very young age. When I was 6 years old, I was involved in a classroom scuffle with another boy, a fight with another boy. And I was kicked. See, he thinks I'm his superhero. You see that? I've trained him, I've only been here 2 minutes. Anyway, thank you. I love you. Whew. So, I was 6 years old. I got in a fight with another boy at school. I was kicked so hard in the left groin that I had to have my left testicle surgically removed. And a few weeks later, the district nurse, it wasn't you, the district nurse arrived on the doorstep, clutching a menacing-looking pair of scissors and tweezers to remove the stitches from my scrotum. And for some reason back then, they didn't use any anaesthetic on me. So as she unthreaded the first stitch, I felt this sharp pain skyrocket through me. And above all else, I wanted to cry. Oh God, it was so painful. Something inside stopped me. You see, I'd heard from somewhere, maybe a big person or maybe on the school playground, that somewhere big boys don't cry. Oh, okay, that kind of made sense to me. I was 6 years old, that kind of made sense to me. So, you know what I did instead? I stuck out my tiny little chest and I gritted my teeth and I clenched my fist till my knuckles turned a milky white, and guess what? I didn't fucking cry. I didn't cry. I didn't cry because that's what made sense to me. And you know something? It felt like a bloody victory, but it still confused me. It felt wrong. Something wasn't right about that. And so, what happened then? What followed from there? I actually, at the time, I thought to myself, I thought by holding it all in, I thought the emotions would go away, but they actually didn't. They just compounded. They got worse. And, what happened from there? Lots of other stuff happened after that. I mean, shortly after, the headmaster went and told the entire school that I'd lost a testicle. And I didn't talk about that. At 8 years old, I was sexually abused by the woman who lived next door. And she went on to terrorise our family. I didn't talk about any of that. I didn't tell a soul about that for 15 years. And all through secondary school, I was bullied for having one testicle. And I was forced to eat grass and I was beaten up. And I was called names and had songs sung about me and all the rest of it. And I didn't talk about that either. And my mum and dad they didn't really know how to deal with me. They didn't know how to deal with this. So what they did, they decided the best thing to do would be to sweep it under the carpet. And so there was nowhere really for me to go to talk about any of this stuff. So by the age of 13, I started to experience acute panic attacks. And I mean the kind of panic attacks that used to throw me out of bed into the wall. They were just crazy. And my mum and dad obviously were very concerned, so they took me to see the local doctor. But instead of actually asking me how I felt, he prescribed Valium, and I was left on the sofa in a semi-catatonic state for 2 weeks to try and figure out my life. And you know something? When the Valium actually wore off, the panic attacks were still there. So they didn't go anywhere. Now, what I've come to understand about this vow of male silence, and I'm trying to help you join the dots here, between who I became and what had happened to me as a boy, and that I'd know where to go to actually talk about any of this stuff. What tends to happen for men and for boys around this vow of silence is that if the aim of this vow of silence is to suppress our emotional truth, then we have to keep everything at arm's length. So it's really important that we don't let anybody in. So in order to do that, we have to push people away. We have to become something else. And unfortunately, there's something that comes with that which doesn't help us in any way whatsoever, because in order to do that, we have to isolate ourselves. We have to pull away. We have to become separate. And unfortunately, in that isolation, we can start to suffer with depression. We can start to feel alone. And I spoke with many men when I was writing the book, and I actually asked them, I said, is there something, what is the one feeling that you experience on a daily basis? These were men from all walks of life, high-flying businessmen, top dads, the lot. And every single one of them came back to me with the word loneliness. And so, what we have here is, if we are experiencing this loneliness, then we can start to suffer with chronic low-level depression. And a lot of that depression in men goes undiagnosed. It goes undiagnosed because we're afraid of going to the doctor because we don't want to be perceived as weak. And so yes, the rate of depression is higher in women. Well, that kind of makes sense, doesn't it? Because if we're not going, then that sort of makes sense. And that depression can turn for some men into pretty full-blown depression. And again, if that stuff doesn't go undiagnosed, you just have to take a look at suicide rates in men to see where that can end up. I think it's in every country in the world, barring 2, where the suicide rate is highest in men. So that gives you some idea of that. So I want to talk as well, I mean, again, this is supposed to be an inspiring talk. I don't want to sort of, everybody sort of, oh my God, give me the Samaritan's number, bloody hell. Anyway, so, I want to talk about healing the vow as well, because we've only got 20 minutes and time's ticking, and I've been promised if I go over this 20 minutes, she's going to give me a good hiding. So, oh, you're there. Hello. Right, so healing the vow of male silence. You see, we're really good in this world at staying in the dilemma. We're really good at finding ways to cope. I really believe we can move beyond that and start to get to a place where, rather than just surviving, we can start to thrive. And the first step in healing the vow of male silence is we have to start to take responsibility. And that doesn't matter whatever your gender is, male, female, or whatever. It means about taking responsibility for your part in this fucking mess. Yeah, taking responsibility means having a sober moment with yourself in the mirror where you admit to yourself that the old way doesn't work anymore. It's not working. My life isn't working anymore. You need to have that moment. It's like an alcoholic. They first have to admit there's a problem before they can start to lean towards any kind of solution. And the second thing is to talk. Talk about it. We have to find environments like this and spaces where we can express and talk about our vulnerability and talk about our inner world and what's happening for us. Is really, really important. And the third thing is to feel. That is something men find really difficult. I mean, I've worked with men who don't admit they don't even know what emotions are. They're so locked up. One guy described it as a talk we did once as running alongside a fence. But we have to feel, and we have to get comfy with uncomfortable feelings. And I think this is probably what's at the root of the vow of male silence, that we're just shit at emotions. I think that's really what it comes down to. So, consider this, if we offer men a space to actually talk and to feel, maybe we can reunite them with their emotions. Maybe we can reunite them with what I like to call their full humanity, which is what we seem to have been stripped of. What if we can change the way we teach our boys how to behave, so that they don't have to act out so destructively in the first place? And thirdly, what if it's actually possible to eradicate male suicide in this lifetime? I went to see Christmas Carol with my wife the other night, absolutely brilliant, in London at the Old Vic. It's one of my favourite stories. In fact, we're writing a book on it. This is going to be our next book. And I'm sure you all know the story of Scrooge, the miserly one. And anyway, there was this moment when the third spirit visited, where they wheeled this coffin out on stage. And Scrooge was stood with the ghost, and when he turned round, his father was stood in the doorway, his abusive father. And she said, "He still haunts you, doesn't he?" And he said, "Yes, he does." And as he turned round and he looked at the coffin, a younger version of himself was sat on the coffin. A playful version of himself. A kid who was full of love and compassion and fun. And he was sat on the coffin. And Scrooge walked over to him and he took his hands. And he said, "I don't want you to become me. I don't want you to become me." And he wept. And I wept in that moment, seeing that moment, because it reminded me of when I first took the step to break the vow of silence in my own life. And I was attending a 3-day workshop after many, many years of resistance. Why was I attending this workshop? Because my life depended on it. Because I couldn't carry on the way I was doing. And obviously I can't tell you everything tonight because my time's running out. So, and I'm afraid that, like I did say, is there going to be some kind of chair that's going to push me through the floor at the end of it or something? Yeah. And anyway, so there's this lovely moment that reminded me of my first workshop that I ever did. And at that point, my life was a complete mess. Even though on the outside it didn't look like it was, and I couldn't continue the way I was because I don't think I'd have been around too much longer. And in this workshop, I decided to take the single biggest emotional risk of my life. I decided to do what I couldn't do when I was 6 years old, when I was having the stitches taken out of my scrotum. I wept. I just wept. I just let go. It was like a tsunami of tears. I wept for the 6-year-old boy who'd lost a testicle. I wept for the 8-year-old boy who'd been sexually abused. I wept for the boy who was bullied, who didn't think he should have even been born. I wept for all of it. And in that moment, I actually always believe that in falling apart or allowing another person in to see how I was really feeling, that they would recoil in terror, that they wouldn't like me. And what happened in falling apart, I came to know the truth in myself. I came to know the truth about me, who I am, what I stand for as a man, my natural inheritance. And all that crap that I'd made up about myself, that I believed about myself, that my heart didn't matter, that my story didn't matter, that my life didn't fucking matter. It wasn't true. None of it. None of it was true. In that moment, I had an experience of what it meant to be a real man, whilst in connection with other human beings. It's absolutely amazing. And you know, contrary to popular belief, we men are not two-dimensional, hollow human doings. We're human beings with a capacity to feel and to love and to be whole. You know, as I say these words, there are men all over the world breaking the vow of male silence. These are men who dare to feel. They dare to feel their emotions. They're unapologetic. They're strong. They're sensitive. They're multidimensional, beautiful men. 21st century trailblazers. And they're fucking proud of it. And do you know something? I'm proud of it too. I'm proud to be stood up here tonight saying, I'm proud to be a man. I'm proud to be a man. I'm proud that I had the courage to go through all the experiences that I went through that have allowed me to actually stand on this stage tonight and tell my story. Because if I had have listened to what society told me about what being a real man is, I'd have probably been 6 foot under the ground tonight. And that is the importance of this message. It is simple, but it is urgent, and it is important. And it is this. It's time to break and heal the vow of male silence. Thank you very much.